On the run up to the new year, we get given a new season here on iRacing, and with that comes a brand new season of the community ran and our favorite Friday night primetime. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to RaceSpotTV, where we are here for the newest installment of FNP. Once again, the community aspect continues, though this time with a slight tweak. Over the last couple of days, you at home have voted for the series we take to for the entire 12-week season. Starting here in Road America, it is the US Open Wheel B IndyCar Series Open. And to talk you through all the action, myself, Zach Sweeney, and Cameron Roger returning again with the introduction of Iku Merikala behind the scenes. Cam, we've had the week off. We're back to the new season. Are you excited as I am?
Yes, certainly are. 2023 getting underway a couple of weeks early. Of course, 3 races still to do this year. But of course, this IndyCar Series is going to be great. We got so many laps of action with a lot of ovals coming your way as well. And we got warmed up for this at Talladega a few weeks ago as well here for Friday Night Primetime. So I'm looking forward to it and I can't wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see on the screen, the full rundown of the tracks we travel to for over the course of the next 12 weeks, ending, of course, on March the 3rd. We go to some interesting circuits, of course, a number of ovals there on the screen, but also a couple of interesting installments. You can see that Brands Hatch Indy, 81 laps long in these Indy cars. That's going to be fun. I mean, it strays away from the usual. You got Road America, Spa, Sebring, whatever. They're like, okay, fair enough. They're decent circuits. They'll be interesting. They're sort of typical. Brands Hatch Indy.
Yeah, that one is going to be a very interesting race there on January the 20th, so still a few weeks away from that. But that is certainly one to look out for in the calendar if you want to get yourself in the race, because of course we follow the top split of this series. So just sign yourself up and obviously get your rating good enough to get into the top split, and you will be on the screens here every Friday night.
Yeah, of course. As what we're going to do, we're going to travel over to the game. The qualifying is almost over. We've got about 2.5 minutes left to go. At the moment, Kevin Birrell leads the way. Only 21 thousandths of a second clear of Alex van der Sande there in second place. So some very interesting and very close times as well. Looking at the live time, in the top four separated by less than a tenth of the interval between each driver less than a tenth of a second. So already proven to be very, very close. For a 1 minute 42 lap time as well, that's definitely not so bad, and really is looking positive for the race that we've got. 32 laps in length. It's not the shortest one in the world, Cam. We're expecting a little bit of strategy along the way as well.
Yes, certainly are. Plenty of time for these drivers to try and work something out with the strategy as well. Of course, you see the different tyre compounds as well, the alternates and the primary tyres for the drivers to work their way through as well. And of course, in the qualifying session, you want to be going as quick as possible. But as you say, for such a long lap, there is a bit of a field spread, but those top sort of 7 drivers are really close, just 2/10 of the way. And there'll be some names that you recognise, of course, throughout the iRacing platform. And I'm sure they're going to be having a very close race. But once again, it's not just the top that we need to look at, because that midfield is also very close, from Hayward in 10th down to Willett there in 13th as well. All just so close. A couple of tenths between those guys as well.
Yeah, it's already this season is starting off with a banger of a qualifying session, and I'm fingers crossed this carries on into the race. Of course, it is a sprint format of sorts, but also with that strategy dynamic as we talked about, and what a circuit to come to for the opening round. Road America in these Indy cars, it's going to be fantastic. The undulation of the circuit, the way it dips and falls away from you, and just the nature of it in a sense really does promote some fantastic racing action if you let it. I mean, that run in towards turn 3 and of course down the hill in towards turn 5. There are so many different places to get the overtakes done here that, with the slipstream coupled with that, a long pack, hopefully, because of how close these times are, we're going to see some fantastic racing.
Yeah, we certainly are. Just 30 seconds left. And of course, as ever in our racing, just a couple of laps the drivers will be getting, a couple of laps run. So you need to be making them count. If not, you'll be a bit lower down. Driver, I definitely know myself there. Phil Kraus in P80 is often at the top in this car. Used to drive for my team when I owned one a few years ago as well. Good guy, and certainly one I'll personally be looking out for. But 4/10 for him there in that number 3 car. And Crane then the number 1. So the highest rated driver all the way down in P9.
Shows how competitive and how close this field is. There is prime example of Cameron Roger with zero commentary bias there, rooting for Phil Kraus down there in P8. It's fine because I've been on the receiving end of the old commentary bias, so it's all good and dandy. With qualifying reaching the checker flag, we're going to walk you through how they line up after that qualifying session and how they are going to rack up on the grid for 32 long laps here at Road America. What I can tell you for free is that Kevin Birrell leads the way. We will pull up the grid as soon as we can. But yeah, Cam, looking forward to this one.
Indeed, and I'm actually quite interested to see how they're going to work the strategy throughout this race. 32 laps is a lot of time, but here is the grid.
As we say, Kevin Birrell takes pole position. Last season, Talladega winner Alex van der Sande will join him on the front row of the grid with Robert Malechka and Jacob Oster 3 and 4. Anders Sandberg rounds off your top 5. Joining him on the third row of the grid is Brian Carey. Beyond that, P7 goes to Hugo Olsen. If we want to scroll down the grid just to give you the full rundown. Hugo Olsen, Philip Kraus, P8, as we say, with Adam Crane and Danilo Piazza rounding your top 10. Showing the 6th row of the grid, Olivia Hayward and Will Weiser, P11 and 12. Ricciuti and Will to join each other's company on the 7th row of the grid, with Sudik and Marquez 15th and 16th. Just in behind them, Hollibo and Seb Alexander to round off towards the back end of the grid. Only a few more cars to scroll through. Ryan Hardinge, Nico Yava, the top 20 with Carreño, Zachary Hubler representing for the Zacks in 22nd place. AJ Musselman and Dale Weiser rounds off the grid there in 24th and final position. position after the 8-minute qualifying session. Soon to get underway then for race number 1 here for the new season of Friday Night Primetime, Cam. And as we say, it's tipped off to be one of the best season openers that we've had. I mean, there are some really high standards, but can this new season top it off?
I think it certainly can. I'm loving this community aspect that we've done over the course of the back end of 2022. Last season, of course, it was every single race that was voted for, but for this time, it's just the full season, which is good because we can have some continuity and maybe follow some of these drivers across the range of races that we are going to, and especially in the IndyCar is great because we have the different styles of tracks and of course the ovals especially that are going to come into this. You need a lot different driving styles and also racing styles that come with that as well, so really looking forward to how this one lines up as we've got the 24 drivers on the grid. It's going to be fiercely competitive as the drivers do burnouts there trying to get away from the line as we come in to of course the rolling start in this series.
Yeah, full formation lap, so they've got plenty of time to get those brakes and tyres up to temperature is going to be of vital importance. But going back to what Cam said just a second ago there in terms of the changes for Season 1 of the 2023 season of Friday Night Primetime, we've changed it just a little bit. Of course, as Cam said, last season you voted week by week for the track and series that we went to, but for this season we have voted on a single series. And just talking about how close and how difficult it was for you guys at home to make your mind up, 263 of you voted, 106 of you voted for the IndyCar Series Open that we're here now. 102 voted for the IMSA iRacing Series, 5 voted for the Porsche Cup Fixed, and 49 for the iRacing GR Cup in the brand new Toyota GR86. But Cam, only 4 votes difference between the 2 top series voted. It was very, very close for those at home to make up the mind, and now we've got to commit to the IndyCars.
Difficult pick, that is to be said, because these are 2 very popular series indeed. And to us, I was surprised. I did think IMSA would just nick it, but it went the other way. The IndyCar community coming to this one, and I think it's certainly a good choice as well. As you mentioned, it's such a versatile series, which is why it's so popular, not only in real life, but also on the iRacing service as well. So, yeah, good to see some very close battles, and maybe we'll see how that one swings going into season 2 in a couple of months' time. But there's definitely going to be 12 hot weeks of action around all these circuits coming into it. And the thing for me about Road America is that there's just so many straights around here that you can really use that slipstream to your advantage and keep on the back of the drivers around you. Of course, there's push to pass to be involved with this car as well. So there's certainly loads of options around this track. And yeah, I'm really going to look forward to what the drivers can do in this series.
Yeah, for sure. It should be a season definitely of drama and chaos, particularly when we go to the likes of Brands Hatch Indy and the ovals that we travel to over the course of this season. I mean, look back to season 4 of 2022 when we went to Talladega. What a race that was. It was action from start to finish, and really goes to show what these Indy cars can definitely do in the virtual world of iRacing. Really does deliver week in, week out, and they're just such a raceable car. I mean, we saw them last week in the VCO Pro Sim Infinity. The racing action that they were able to put on over there in that event as well was just second to none. So they really are a versatile chassis. But Cam, I'm going to give you the most difficult question because we don't know anyone on this grid. Who's going to win?
Difficult question indeed. Kevin Birrell certainly looking very good at the front there, but as we know from the last time Friday Night Primetime with these cars, Van der Sant won, who is currently in that second place. So I definitely think they are ones to look out for, and it obviously depends how this start goes, coming down through the turn 1, 2, 3 sequence of corners. Loads of carnage can happen there as well. So it's not the easiest place is this venue to start a race, but I'm going to say Van der Sant, he's going to be my one for the win today.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with you there, purely because we know who he is, we know what he can do. However, that wasn't an oval. This is on a road course. A lot of questions to be answered. A whole new season of adventures to go through. We start here in Road America. Kevin Birrell, Alexander Van der Sant, your front row of the grid. We're underway in Road America, and already a fantastic jump from the number 2 of Kevin Birrell. The green flag waves you can see there up in the flagpole. Alexander Van der Sant already in tow, trying to pull to the right-hand side, just in behind there. Robert Malechka as well. In towards turn 1 for the first time. It's Kevin Birrell that leads from Van der Sant, Malechka, Oster and Carey, your top 5. A bit of side-by-side just in the background there as they run their way through turn 2 and in towards 3. Kevin Birrell, great start.
Yeah, that right-hand lane had a bit of a slower start there. Oh, there's a car there from 4th place. Going down is that Oster, I should say. Jacob Oster, now 14, having a massive wheel spin there, just maybe not having the tyres up to temperature, going all the way down to the back of the field pretty much, as they still continue side by side down towards turn 5, trying to work their way into some sort of single file action, and it's working for a number of drivers. Positions are switching there into turn 5.
Yeah, people jostling for position. It's the prime place to get these moves done. We see there, this is Will Visor. He's closely followed by Olivia Hayward, who is trying to make up some places on the initial start and getaway, fighting for the fringes of the top 10. Also, a little bit further up, Phil Kraus. What a start from him from 8th on the grid. Already now up 4 places into P4, running through the carousel for the first time. Only 2 seconds off the race lead. If he can get onto the back of Malechka, could definitely be an upset for this race lead.
Yeah, dark horse in this race for sure. Starting at 8th place, got to 6th in turn 1. Obviously, he was gifted a position with Oster spinning around, and then a nice move there for 4th place for the number 3 machine, as we've seen all the drivers there on the primary tyres to start this race. As Hollibo, they're using the push to pass in the background, and of course that'll be something that the drivers need to look out for with their time limits and usage limits that they've got for those throughout the 32 laps. But certainly that is a lap 1 for Phil Kraus to remember, as he's only still 2 seconds off the lead and made up 4 places already.
And with 31 laps of this race left to go, Phil Kraus perfectly poised maybe to snatch a podium or whatever. We're only 1 lap in, we can't read too much into it, but it definitely is looking good, and that racecraft of Phil Kraus is promising. A little bit further back in the field, you can see Sudik under a bit of pressure from Hollibo and Crane, push both on the button for push to pass in towards turn 1, not quite close enough is the 24 machine, nor 2 is the number 1 of Crane, as they once again dip their way down the hill. There goes Crane looking to the right hand side, trying to get the move done, does so indeed. Not hard fought from Hollibo. Is that a strategical thing? You don't want to fight too hard. Do you have to stay in the slipstream to stay in contention?
I definitely think you do a long straight here through turn 4, all the way down towards turn 5. Look at the train behind as well. Maybe not wanting to go side by side, but they are now in towards the braking zone. Their Crane there on the inside, just holding on to that position. Goes a bit deep though, as cars in the background go spinning out. Maybe Alexander dropping down, or Hardage maybe dropping down. Loads of incidents happening here in this first couple of corners, first couple of laps of the race. Maybe the driver's not quite up to temperatures, up to speed with this car.
Yeah, of course, they are on the harder compound of tyre to start this race underway. So they will take a little while to get up to temperature. I mean, yeah, especially when they get to the pit stops, they're going to have to make sure that they hit the nail on the head with that one and get themselves up to speed, get back into that rhythm as quickly as possible. But it's so easy to get overwhelmed at a race start, particularly when you're in high downforce cars like these, because they've got more downforce than you really know what to do with. And it's so sort of crazy to think that, you know, U-turn, the car will follow, and for some drivers that can be a little bit difficult to get used to. But anyway, side by side on the run in towards turn 12 at Canada Corner, having a bit of a look, running too wide on the outside. He tries to keep it there, but you can see there the car in behind gets the drive off the corner, and that is going to be telling, I think, of this race. Is the car in third place? Oh, off there. Car in third place no more. But yeah, wow, there's Ryan Hardinge having a bit of a hard time going through the final couple of corners.
Oh, that was a big slide, a big moment there. It's a very fast section on the track, almost flat out as we're getting runs up towards the hill. Oster there on the push to pass, getting that extra power down this front straightaway in towards turn 1. Easy maneuver there, no real fighting to be had, and that is just showing the tactical ways you can use that push to pass to get a nice easy move. But of course, that just means that your opponent can use it back on this next straight out of turn 3. That is one reason why we do love Road America.
Yeah, for sure. Plenty of places to get the move done, plenty of places to get the counter-attack, and a lot of laps to get the racing done and dusted. I mean, the push to pass is going to be a massive element in this race, because without it, you are going to be so vulnerable. But you can't be conservative with how much you use it. That's a bit of a twist there from Oster. Had a bit of a moment earlier on in this race. Now running side by side, you can see there with Nico Java and running too well. You can see there Java able to get in front as they run their way through into the next right-hander. So Oster, bad to worst, really, for him. It was a decent qualifying, but since then just been downhill. Is that a knock of confidence? Is it easy to get back into the rhythm of things?
Oh, it's so difficult to do so, especially when you're right at the front. So you had that coming into the race, you had that sort of opportunity to win the race. You could really fight from the front. So to go away from that is certainly very difficult indeed. As we're seeing Crane there, is he going to be diving it down the inside late on the brakes? He's going to be making that move side by side on the apex and slipping through there up towards 10th place as Sudik goes back to 11th. The number 1 car making a nice move there. But talking of number 1, pole position driver Birrell has dropped down to 4th place over the course of the opening few laps as Sant takes the lead. That is certainly a potential race-changing move as Kraus has got in for 3rd place as well.
Yeah, wow, fantastic start, of course, for Phil Kraus, but for Kevin Birrell, again, I'm not entirely sure as to what's happened. We're going to see that in just a moment because Marquez is on the button. Having a bit of a look now to the inside of Wilt down in towards turn 1. That should be a fairly easy affair and is for the black and white IndyCar running through turn 1 and not very hard fought. This is going to be a little bit more hard fought though with Yava trying to work his way through, also joined by Oster and Carreño as they run in towards 3. Not quite close enough for the move, and you can see there Yava is trying to hang on to that 16th place. So the fight amongst the midfield, as we said, very, very close indeed.
Yeah, it's great to see these battles still continuing. Lap 4 of 32 around here. We're going side by side once again, coming down in towards turn 5. Little wiggle there, and looks like Hubler there moving up into 14th place. Will it moves down to 15th, and this battle is really a 3-way battle as well, with Marquez just in front of them. So great battles even a bit further down, as we were mentioning in the qualifying as well. It's not just the top sort of 5-10 cars to look at, it's also the midfield in these races. They're always so close as well. There's almost like a second tier of drivers, and maybe in terms of speed they're not fighting for the win, but they can certainly fight for the positions that they're in.
Absolutely, and it is awesome to see when we have such close fight, and even if it's not necessarily for the race victory, just to have racing is always good. This is a bit side by side down in towards Canada corner. You can see the number 6 machine of Brian Carey under a bit of pressure there from Piazza. This is the fight for 5th as they run. But unfortunately not coming to fruition there on that particular occasion. But yeah, having a bit of a look. Actually, no, this is Crane and Visor, or Hayward, I should say, for P9. Crane is making some moves forward through the field. It's a strange one for Crane because, of course, that poor lackluster qualifying has really put him on the back foot for this race, because the pace definitely is there, the racecraft is there. However, being sort of locked in that pack fight for sort of the midfield and the top 10 has really sort of tarnished his momentum. By the time he's been able to get through this pack, you know, Sant and Malechka, they're already sort of now 7.8 seconds up the road. Even though he's got some pace, it's going to be difficult for him to win.
It certainly is. 8 seconds off the lead is a lot of time to make back. He's actually doing a pretty good job because he's slid through those drivers behind of Hayward and Sudik very quickly in the last couple of laps. So not really losing too much time as such from them, but it is really the fact that the leaders have had such a clean run of it that they are able to hold on. As we're seeing still side-by-side battles there. Hubler there once again into turn 5, getting past Hollybow there, as they're still side-by-side a bit further up as well as he gets past Marquez as well. Double move there for Hubler for the number 12, moving into P12 as well, as he's also 12 seconds off the lead. All the 12s for Hubler.
Yeah, must be his lucky day or something like that, because, well, 2 moves in 1 is not a bad affair at all for him. 5 laps into this race then, and trying to settle into a nice bit of a rhythm. Bit of a clear track in front of Zachary Hubler as he endeavours on his charge towards Sudik, and then maybe Olivia Hayward as well for the top 10, but that remains to be seen. Still a long way to go, and still maybe a lot of mistakes left to be made, maybe with the pit strategy. Maybe you use too many push-to-passes too early. And what would you do, Cam, in terms of your push-to-pass usage? Would you go out of the gates quite strong, or would you be conservative and wait to that end of the race when everyone else is going to be vulnerable?
Oh, it's certainly a difficult one, as all we're getting the side-by-side battles there. A little bit further down the grid for the lower positions. Didn't quite see who that was, but a nice move there in Canada corner. Certainly turning into one of the better overtaking opportunities, as there's Ricciuti there into that corner. Up into 13th place now, and starting to make some moves. So certainly a good job. It was actually, P23, I think it was.
Yeah, for sure. Having a bit of a check-up, actually, in terms of the front runners. You can see Van der Sat leading the way. Malechka, Kraus, your top 3, are going to cut to them at the moment, and they are very, very close indeed. The 5 leads the 13, leads the 3. Kevin Birrell only about 7/10 of a second off the back of Kraus, so still definitely in this fight. But Van der Sat, I think, doing a great job of just maintaining the pace, dictating how fast everyone goes, because I don't think Malechka can really quite get much closer than this. I think it's that stage of course, the wash of the air makes it a little bit more difficult for you to close that gap in these sort of more high downforce machines. So Van der Sande is just controlling it and keeping Malechka sort of at an arm's length away so that he can just comfortably lead, not under much pressure.
Yeah. Coming back to your point on the push to pass, or how would you attack it? I'd certainly just try and use it at a critical moment in the race. If you're in this battle, say, your Kraus or your Birrell in this battle, you're sitting at the back end of it. You don't really need to use it at this point. Of course, you want to make a move, you want to get up, but while you can still see the leader, while you're still within a couple of seconds, you don't really need to be using it at this time. So I would, if I was them, I'd be saving them for later on in the race, so then when you can really use it in the last few laps and really sort of make a move, even maybe to do with the pit stop sequence, as you see there. Malechka and Kraus still on 10, whereas Bill and Sant have used some. So certainly one to be looking out for a little bit later on. Those that have saved it have not really got too worked up in the situation. They'll be certainly very tasty in these battles later on.
Absolutely. The most notable time I can remember push to pass being used in a road course race was all the way back a couple of seasons ago in the Stock Car Brazils Austria. I was alongside DJ Clark for that race, and they played such an interesting part in that race, because we got to the end of the race and the fight for the lead was raging on for a long time in terms of a couple of drivers towards the front end. One of them had 3 left to go going on to the end of the race, and he was able to comfortably win. The driver in behind had about 1 or 2 left going into the final couple of laps, and it just gives you that upper hand mentally as well, to know that you've got enough push to passes in store, to know that if worst comes to worst, you've got enough in your arsenal ready to throw at any situation come those final couple of laps. Because at the end of the day, those are the only real battles that matter, particularly when you're in packs as close as this. Say if Kraus got past Malechka right now, what does that really gain him other than a bit of track position for now? The only time these moves are really going to count is right towards the end of the race, and that's when you're going to want that push to pass.
Yeah, when you're planning the strategy of your race, not just strategy in terms of your pit stops, but in terms of your push to pass, in terms of just general pushing or saving at certain points in the race, you've got to think at your overall race time. So yes, maybe you could gain 2, 3, 4, 5 seconds now, but is that then going to put you back potentially 10 seconds at the end of the race, because you're going to be struggling in that final stint? And that's certainly something that you need to think about, because it's the trade-off of attacking early or attacking later on in the race. And those who can be a little bit more sort of conservative, let's say, and they can come to the end of the race with a faster race car, they will be the ones ultimately to come out on the battles. As we come to this battle at the lower parts of the top 10 now, as we're seeing Crane get on the back of them, really pulled away from Hayward behind, and is starting to get involved. So to be honest, Zach, I don't think Crane's really out of this, at least for getting maybe that P5.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. Looking at their last lap times, Alex Van der Sande is set the pace with a 1:41.9. That's closely matched by Malechka and Kraus, only a difference of a couple of tenths or so. Adam Crane, 45.6 on that last lap. So relatively, competitive, definitely, and even matching and beating the likes of Van der Sande. So his pace is very respectful. You can see there just to the right-hand side of the timing tower. That is their last lap times as they cross the line. He's got some really competitive pace, and that's helping him carve the way through. And not only is it competitive pace, it's consistent pace. His best lap is a 45.3. So between each lap, there's only a difference of a couple of tenths or so between Crane. And relative to those in front, it's just allowing him to catch at such an exponential rate that he's right onto the back of him, clears them, done, dusted, off he goes, and he's setting his sights. He's using each car as a stepping stone to the next. Gets past one, boom, what's next? Catch the next car, boom, what's next? Catch the next car. And that is such a good mentality to have, because he's driving on instinct.
He certainly is, and this would be a very good overtake as well down the inside Canada corner. We've seen this before. Slides down nicely there. No real battle on the apex as Visor goes down to 9th place. Crane up into 8th, and he will now work his way further up. As you say, just picking them off one at a time, and he lost maybe a tenth at best. A couple of tenths, if that, doing that battle as well. So really just not losing anything in terms of his overall race time, and that is just so powerful if you have that ability, you have that I guess confidence and speed against your rivals, just slicing through the field.
Confidence is a big thing when it comes to pack racing. You have to trust yourself, and you have to go into a corner not on a 50-50. You can't go in and think, oh, do I send it? Do I have a bit of a look back out of it? Because that's when issues start to arise. You have to go into the corner saying, I'm going to make the overtake this lap, and then make the overtake done. Of course, there is a fine line between it being overconfident and just being the sort of the sweet zone of confident. As we see just in the moment, this little bit of a fight for P20. Masterman just at the back of it, trying to get past for P20 and P19, the fight just in front of him. But yeah, in terms of confidence, it's such an important factor, because as soon as you start to doubt yourself, as soon as you lose that confidence, mistakes start to creep in, and generally your progress just gets slowed down.
Yeah, it certainly does. As we've seen Holloway there actually make a move on Willies, but is an interesting one there was that Willies was actually on the push to pass but got overtaken, which was a bit of a funny one there. Maybe just tried to use it to defend, but a bit too late, and still lost out that position for P16. As we've seen there, Holloway also make some moves in this race, but unfortunately just dropped off from Java there, who is in P15 by about 3 seconds or so. Up the road is Sudik in P11, also on the push to pass. You can see on the tower the flashing on the push to pass. Certainly a very obvious route when they are using it, but it doesn't seem like they have too many uses of that. So definitely have to be tactical, and it certainly was, as Hayward there drops down a position, Sudik up into 10th.
Yeah, getting himself in nicely to the top 10. You can see there in the bottom right a replay, I think, of how he managed to get it done. We're going to see the live action as well. A bit of a move to the right-hand side, to the outside line as they run their way to this. It's a switcheroo. The replay is the one that's on the big screen. Down in towards turn number 5, you can see there Sudik down the inside of turn 5. Easy-ish affair, not too hard from Hayward. And those are the moves that you really like, is when the other car doesn't make it too difficult, because unless you're sort of fighting for the race lead or whatever, all you're doing when you battle so early on and so hard as well is just slowing each other down. It's better just to have that mutual agreement to say, all right, you're quicker at this point. There's no point fighting you so hard, because, yeah, I mean, P10, P11, P12, it's not that big of a difference. And, you know, it's just a nicer thing to do, I suppose. I mean, they're racing. They don't necessarily have to be nice, but just as sort of the better racecraft is just to not fight it too hard too early on.
It's certainly something that we see, especially the higher level races, as you're mentioning, is avoiding battling. As Sudik's had an issue, though. He has dropped down. Hayward Hubler's gone past Oster and Marquez, and that is an awkward place to rejoin as well. Java having to go round the outside of turn 7, which is not necessarily the place that you want to be. But Sudik's gone a bit wide there through the turn 6 sequence. I wonder if he was helped at all. We'll have to potentially get a replay of that one to see, but certainly the pink-wheeled machine was off in the grass.
Yeah, I mean, fine margins here at Road America. Going to take a replay as to how it happened. You can see there the pink-wheeled machine parking the car. Very vibrant car as well. It really does stand out, which is always good when it comes to a nice livery. And that is just way too deep into that left-hander. Road America, it's so difficult when it comes to track limits like that, because, again, it's literally the track, grass, gravel, and that is it. And then, of course, barrier only a couple of meters after that. It's not got an extensive amount of tarmac runoff, which is oftentimes a driver's favorite, but also makes it very difficult when you make the most marginal mistakes. It can really end in some pretty drastic consequences. Yeah,
it's an old school track. To us, I absolutely love it. And in general, the Europeans maybe aren't always a favourite, I should say, of the American tracks, just because they are so old school, and the safety standards in some ways aren't at the same level. As we're going to see Crane here getting up another position there. Visor also on the push pass behind, but Crane's going to be using it to get past Sandberg and up into 7th place. But yeah, for sure, for me, this is certainly one of the sort of awesome tracks to come to, and it's a special one because you are punished if you go off. You are right. I know in sort of turn 1, 2 in real life there's a bit more tarmac than what we have in this iRacing at this moment in time, but certainly most of the track has remained as it is with all this grass as well, and it's certainly one that's a bit difficult for the drivers, because it makes you push the limit, but then you also get bitten if you go over that limit.
Yeah, fine margins. To be competitive, you have to be, on it. You have to brake at the latest point possible, have to get on the power at the latest point possible, on the earliest point possible, I should say, and just make sure you hit your marks lap in, lap out. But it's a circuit that really does reward those that can be so close to that limit and still not make that slight error that makes them surpass it. It rewards consistency, but also it makes you, it forces you to push your limits and get out of your comfort zone, because otherwise you are just going to sink all the way down the time and tower. But for Adam Crane, where was this pace facing qualified, might I ask. He at the moment is running at the same, if not quicker pace, still than our race leaders. He's doing such a fantastic job out there and is already on that pack of cars. You can see that between Danilo, Piazza, and Brian Carey as well. There is Adam Crane. So close to that fight for top 5. I think that is going to be his ceiling, unless something dramatic happens in the front 4. But even that for Adam Crane is going to be some fantastic results.
You will see this a few times actually in these sort of the more public races. As you see, he's the number 1 car, which means he's the highest rated driver in the field, and that's a 5.9k for this one. And sometimes you see the top rated drivers, they obviously think maybe we're going to have a bit of an easier race. So sometimes they maybe don't do the best in qualifying on purpose to then have a bit of a funner race maybe and still get back to a half decent position. So maybe that is one part, but of course we were mentioning in the qualifying, you only get a couple of laps. So sometimes if you just make a bit of a mistake, you just don't quite link up the lap, you can be lower down. And with how close that top sort of 8 was in qualifying, it's very easy to drop down, because to get those last few tenths is so difficult when you're fighting against guys who are literally the same speed as you.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I mean, it's one of those things that qualifying is such a massive factor because track position is important, especially when you have packs as close as this. It means that if you don't start well and you don't maintain a massive improvement of pace into the race, you can struggle to find your way towards the front of the pack. And as you say, it only takes the most marginal mistakes. And of course, you have to do those 2 laps consecutively. So the worst thing is to spin on the last corner, because not only do you ruin the lap you're on, you ruin the next lap as well. And that is very easy to do. I've done it a number of times over the course of my iRacing career. And it's not a fun experience, because all it does is ruin your experience for the race. There you can see Adam Crane into the pit lane. So the first person really to actually go into the pit lane for a scheduled stop. Talking about tyres, we think he has to go on to the alternate softer compound of tyres. I don't think surely they won't last to the end of the race.
Yeah, I guess we're about to find out, as Musselman's also on those alternates, maybe has made a pit stop himself. But yeah, we do believe a change of compound is going to be happening for these drivers. But you'll learn with us, of course, through this first race of the season. And Crane, early pit stop indeed. It looks like it was at 8.8 seconds as well. I don't think we're going to be seeing some 2 stops, so maybe it is. Maybe that's why he was so fast. If it was a bit lighter on fuel, we have to find out. 32 laps is certainly a long way, but certainly that is one to look out for on the strategy when he comes out the pit lane to see if there was a change in tyres.
Yeah,
I don't think there was.
Again, I'm not too sure either, because his pit stop would have been a little bit longer as well if that was the case. Yeah, that's a confusing one for me. I'm not overly sure, unless he doesn't have to change the compound, but we think he does. He does, right?
Unless, as I was mentioning, maybe this is going towards a 2-stop strategy, which would explain the speed compared to everyone else, compared to qualifying, because he gained so much more time in the race.
Potentially so, but again, we'll have to wait and find out. As Cam said, we're learning along with the viewers, and of course we will see how the strategy develops, what the go-to is over the course of this race. 3 of our top 4 into the pit lane. Van der Sant, Malechka and Kraus all in. Same to Brian Carey. Piazza in as well. Kevin Birrell stays out, so too does Sandberg. So some fairly relatively early stoppers. I mean, we are approaching halfway through this race, so I mean, maybe it could work. You can see pretty unanimous for the majority of the top 10 all to come in on lap 14. This seems to be the go-to.
It certainly might be. I mean, all drivers coming in. I wonder if that is something to do with the fuel tank as well. If it is the fuel tank, then we're going to have to 2-stop, because double 14, even accounting 1 for the formation lap, isn't quite going to be enough for that half distance. Or maybe this is just the one that they think they can easily get to the end on a full tank with the alternate tyres. We'll certainly find out as all the drivers coming out of the pit lane. And I see the ones coming out now are taking a bit longer time than we saw with Crane. Crane was, I think, 8.8. Some of these are into the 10s, 9s. I think that's on an 11-second stop as well, potentially. So certainly some different things for the drivers going on here. As we see Hayward has gone on to the alternates and Carreño as well. So the strategy is certainly opening up for these drivers, which is exactly what we like to see.
Yeah, a big range of strategy just to confuse us in the commentary booth, but it's good to see because it's interesting how the dynamic of it evolves and changes, because at some point different drivers are going to be quicker than others, and then towards the end of the race you'll see which drivers have made the right call and how many of those strategies work, because most of the time there's not one set algorithm to go about it. It's not pit this lap, do this, do that. There are a number of different ways you can get to the same right answer.
There certainly are, as especially when it comes to addition and multiplication. Doesn't matter which order you do things in, you'll always get back to the same number. And that's kind of a good way of thinking about it. Is we're getting Birol and Sandberg into the pit lane. How will they filter out? Is the undercut better? Is the overcut better? Normally, overcut in fuel tank racing, in refueling racing, is better because you have an extra lap on a lower tank of fuel. But of course, you're on the older tyres, and as we saw in the first couple of laps, the outlaps, though, can be quite difficult with the cold tyres.
Yeah, getting word in the YouTube channel. Shout out to Chris Fowler saying 13-13 and then 6 lap stints between the primaries, and then on to the red alternates as well. So shout out to those in the YouTube chat. Thank you for giving us that information. Again, Friday Night Prime Time, all about the community. So thank you to those watching along. We do hope you are enjoying the stream. And that is probably going to be the go-to, I think, for the majority of people. I mean, Chris Fowler has said it. We've got to trust him and trust his words. But yeah, interesting, because that seems to be sort of the foundation of a strategy, but of course there are going to be certain fluctuations here and there in terms of what certain drivers do at different points. Kevin Birol is an example of that, going slightly longer, has lost a little bit of time to the front three of Sant, Malechka and Kraus, but maybe this is going to come back to work in his favor come the end of the race, because he has that extra one lap in his pocket.
Yeah, I'd assume that all the drivers, of course, will be filling the tank to get to these numbers, as we're seeing a move here. Java there coming down the back straight, going down the inside there towards turn 5, just backing out of it a little bit in the end. So Marquez holds on for that one. But yeah, certainly splitting the race up as sort of evenly as you can is good. And the reason why the drivers are using the alternates, which is of course the faster tyres, the reason why they're using them to the end of the race is because if you use them now, you sort of potentially limit yourself, because then you're having to make the overtakes on the people with the primaries. However, if you don't get past them, then in the next stint, you're going to be back on the primaries when they are then on the alternates, and then they will all have the advantage over you. So sometimes it's best to leave your faster tyres to the end of the race in this situation to see if that one is really going to work out, because you're basically just choosing when is your slower stint going to be and then when's your faster stint going to be. And as we see, Birol is actually the one to do that. So Birol now is on those alternate tyres, but he lost an extra couple of seconds in the pit stop relative to the drivers. So this is the crucial stint for him, because this is his fast stint. This is when he needs to effectively get to the race lead and really gain some time.
Absolutely. It is the most important middle stint for Birol, and he needs to deliver on this stint, as you say. But again, yeah, the timing of your stints as well is so crucial, because you do have to go like sort of a play-by-play, see how the race is going for you, and then deciding what you want to do. I think for Birol, this is the right choice, because he was lacking a little bit on pace relative to the front three. Of course, managed to start on pole, but wasn't able to transfer that same pace into this race. So maybe trying something a little bit different in this middle stint to claw himself back into contention, because maybe he's saying if he can get in front of these guys on this sort of shorter stint, he might feel confident enough to bank some push to passes and then use that later on. Seen a bit of a move here between Java and Marquez down in towards turn 5. You can see the number 7 up into 13th place. But yeah, Birol, he's using this middle stint as a chance to get that track position back and then try and just anchor down for that final stint on those primes.
Yeah, he's already gained half a second on this lap since we've been seeing him. So potentially it is going to be working in his favour. The issue is he's now going to make 3 overtakes, which of course cost a bit of time, and then try and make up enough time that the drivers around him aren't just going to come back, because he will be pitting also. If we're doing 13-13-6, he's going to be pitting quite a bit earlier as well. So he's going to have about a 6-lap undercut of the drivers around, and really just trying to do something different in that regard could make it work. We'll have to find out, but he will be on newer tyres, but then he'll be on the heavier fuel at that point in the race. So certainly he's going to be seesawing different ways throughout the rest of this race as to who is faster at different points, and it's going to be great to see which strategy is going to work out. At the moment, Birol's the odd one out, though, in this top 4 battle.
Yeah, he is the anonymous driver, and I like that. Same too with Olivia Hayward down in P11 as well. They are going on this sort of more aggressive middle stint as well. I do like this because, again, any strategy you do comes with its compromises. It comes with its pros and cons, and you have to weigh up which is going to be best to you. You can see Sandberg here on the button trying to get past Piazza on this run down in towards turn number 5, using that push to pass to full array. Up into 7th place for now. Piazza trying to keep his nose there on the inside, side by side as they run through. You have to get the exit though because you're right uphill in towards 6. Piazza back in front, but only by a nose. Now in towards the next left-hander. Sandberg has to cut in behind. He's going to be saying to himself, that was a waste of a push to pass. He used it and still has ended up in the same position as before.
And that's why you've got to use it at the right time. As I was mentioning it earlier, sometimes you've got to just work it out. Is this actually going to be the move, or do you have to wait till a better one? As we're seeing once again, side-by-side action. Turn 5 really being the one to look out for. Still side-by-side up in towards turn 6, and that is perfect right there on the outside. Willis, I think it is, all the way around the outside, keeping it in towards turn 7 with Hollybow on the back of this battle. They've been battling for quite a while now, actually. It's good to see that one is continuing, of course, as we go throughout the race. Quite a difference in lap time on the previous laps. Hollybow, they're almost a second slower on that previous lap.
That is, yeah, a second is a big chunk of time. You do not want to be losing out. So fingers crossed they can try and recover. This is the fight here. You can see Hayward just in front of Jacob Oster on the primes. Oster's done a pretty good job of keeping with Hayward on the slower compound tire. Hayward, I don't think they're making the most of this middle stint, and that is going to come back to bite them when it comes to their actual slower stint relative to those around them. Looking a bit further up the grid as well, you can see Birrell on the push to pass as well, trying to close the gap. Of course, you don't need to use the push to pass just in situations where you're trying to overtake. You can use it whenever you like. You can use it as a push to defend, or you can just use it as an extra bit of a boost to improve your lap times. That's exactly what Kevin Birrell's doing. He has really closed the gap to the front three.
And this is working out in his favour. 1.8 seconds already over the last sort of 2 or 3 laps that we've been following the progress of the driver on those red tyres. So it's going to be certainly putting him in a very good position, but now needs to make those overtakes stick, as that is a bit of a bad run from Hayward up the hill. Is that? Yes, it is. And Oster gets past up in towards 11th place. And now certainly, even though they're Hayward on the alternate tyres, maybe just struggling, they could fall off quite a lot. So going back to the front, Phil Krause here batting for second.
Oh, loving this. This race really is evolving so well. Phil Krause, of course, started 8th on the grid, up now in well and truly contention for the race lead, trying to make it from 3rd into 2nd, trying to get past Malechka. But Van der Sant has really had a quiet race so far. I mean, led by no more than really a second and a half at any point, but has just been so calm and composed. So it is going to be difficult for either Malechka or Krause or Birrell even to really mount a challenge. But we were both confident in Van der Sant's abilities, and they are so far proven to be the case. Malechka really struggling on those push to passes. Am I reading that right, that he's only got 5 left?
Yeah, that is quite a big difference, especially compared to Krause behind, who's obviously been saving up with 9, the most of that top 4 battle as well. And this could be an opportunity for Krause to use one, getting the run. It is certainly, as Malechka comes on the defence, onto the push to passes. It's going to be a side-by-side battle through turn 4, down towards turn 5. Krause trying to get towards the inside. That is covered off though, so it's going to have to be the outside line and potentially a wasted push to pass. But no, it is going to try and make it work all the way around, uses the extra tarmac, and it's going to be Birrell getting past, actually up in towards 3rd place. Krause there wasted that push to pass, couldn't make the overtake stick.
Yeah, it was a tricky one. Beached on the outside of turn 5 is always going to be a difficult one indeed, and Birrell was there to pick up the pieces of the compromise Krause, and that is exactly what Kevin Birrell needs to be doing, is seeing those opportunities and pouncing on them if and when they do come. But yeah, Krause, unfortunate negotiation of that situation there. Malechka was very well in terms of their defense, but that lack of push to pass really is going to hurt them later on in this race. But Krause confident in the amount of push to pass they have got left, try to use it, and as you say, a little bit wasted. Is Krause going to try and launch the counter attack on Birrell, or is he going to try and just tuck in behind, use Birrell as sort of maybe a toe track into better land? This is the move that we just saw. This is Krause on the outside, bit of contact actually, so it wasn't necessarily Crouch just being pushed a little bit too wide. There was a bit of wheel-to-wheel contact there, and of course with these open wheels, very sensitive. Is that Birrell in already?
Yes, certainly is, and that is just showing you potentially how this might not work, because his alternate stint, he didn't really make any progress. Fair enough, he got past Kraus at the end, but that was really because of Kraus's issue rather than the other way around. And Birrell, of course, is going to be going back into potentially a battle with cars behind as well when he comes back out, and he will be potentially on those primary tyres again, we do believe, with a full tank of fuel. So he's going to be slower because he's going to be on the cold tyres initially, and then he's going to have more fuel than anyone else. So I don't know if this is really going to work out for Birrell. We'll have to see, as Hayward also following potentially on that same strategy as well, as Birrell there does go back to the primary. So I don't know if this really is going to work. But we'll have to see, as those top three drivers still out. They're going to be on less fuel and still fairly decent tyres. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a bit of a struggle for Birrell, but we will have to see if it works out.
Maybe there is a bigger drop-off on those alternates than he was particularly expecting. I mean, we saw it with Olivia Hayward in terms of how they both had a really good out-of-the-gates launch, but then very, very quickly we saw those tyres start to struggle, and maybe that is telling of just how quickly those softer rubber is going to degrade. I mean, Road America isn't exactly the easiest track in terms of tyres. This is a move that we just saw now. This is Adam Crane, I believe, on Carey. Late dive to the left-hand side and was able to get the move done. Very confident on the brakes. Lovely jubbly, easy as you'd like it, and already up into P4, so Crane is making some steady progress. But yeah, alternates maybe burning out a little bit too quickly for these drivers' liking.
Yeah, they definitely went off literally in half the time of the primaries, as Kraus there gets past Malechka there, coming up the hill over the crest on the front straightaway up into what will be second place, just pulls back into the racing line as well for the braking zone in towards turn one. And that battle with Sant is now his obviously his opportunity ahead of him, but their batting has lost them a bit of time to Van der Sant, so that's certainly something to think about. But they have still got quite a few laps, about 5 laps, 6 laps, until they're going to be coming into the pit lane for their battle, as we're coming also to Hubler there side by side with Visor in towards turn number 1, and Hubler gets on top of that battle as we come through for 8th position.
Great fights up and down the field, really looking, with good signs for the rest of the season. What a start we've already had here at Road America. And as we say, we go to a variety of different circuits. We'll come back to that point in just a second, because Hubler already having to go defensive. Visor having a look at the counter-attack to the right-hand side. It's going to be very tricky to launch his car to the outside line of turn 5. Is Hubler going to have the inside line and hold it firm? Yes, indeed, he is staying station in that P8. But Visor definitely looking feisty to put that pressure on and maybe launch a counter-attack at a later date. But back to those alternates, being told that by some people that maybe they are actually slower than the primaries even over the course of that 6 lap stint. Maybe the tyre temperatures are a little bit too high. Maybe the demands of Road America and just the general road track conditions as well are proving to be a little bit too difficult. This is Anders Sandberg having a bit of an off, down now to P10, losing that place to Oster as they had a little bit of a moment. But yeah, maybe with the tyres that, yes, they're softer, but they are more prone to overheating, and that could be the Achilles heel for those alternates.
And that, if that is the case, then that it could definitely work in Birrell's favour, with the leaders crumbling their alternates in the last sort of 3 laps or so, as Osama there just losing the rear at a very interesting point, just maybe a little bit too far on that brake bias to the rear in that car, not enjoying it so much into that corner there, turn 8. We'll have to be recovering from that, but that's definitely one thing to think about, actually. Of course, in the first couple of laps of the stint, maybe the alternates are quicker, but then if you average out, including the tyre degradation by sort of lap 6, lap 7, then potentially, it is on average slower than the primaries. That can definitely happen. And if that, as we're saying, if that is the case, Birrell is certainly one to look out for. Isn't in a battle at the moment. P13 does have a gap ahead of him, so that could certainly be in his favour, as he's got some clean laps now.
He has. There are going to be some clean laps that he is going to need. We follow him along. He's just ahead there of Sudik in behind the pink wheeled car that we've come to know and love in that very vibrant livery. Do love a nice little vibrant livery, just to stand out a little bit. On the button for push to pass, so using a bit more power is the number 2 machine. So trying to make the most of this undercut, trying to make the most of that clear air, because when Sant, Kraus and Malechka come into the pit lane, he's going to want to be as close as possible, particularly when they have their fresh burst at the gates of those alternate tyres. tyres, he's going to want to try and be as close as possible to them and not allow them to get the jump on him towards the end of this race. But yeah, look out for Birrell, because maybe the opponents are the sacrificial stint that he got out of the way in that middle portion to be nice and feisty, ready to go towards the end. There is Sudik, unfortunately having it off. And this is a corner that is claiming a number of victims today, Cam. Is it that difficult?
Yes, it actually is, and that was where Sudik went off earlier. I know actually that part's been resurfaced in real life for this year, so maybe that's something that Sudik would hope for to give some more grip potentially. But no, it is a very difficult corner. You're coming up the hill, it's completely blind, and you can never brake as much as you want. Maybe because of the crest, maybe just touching the grass a little bit on the inside, on the outside, I should say there. Not enjoying that one as the front right wheel is going to be going off that car. But yeah, certainly a very difficult one. As I was saying, you come up the hill, you still come over this crest, you can't see the apex at all, completely blind, and you're always having to just slightly touch the brakes. You can never fully touch the brakes, just a slight touch. And of course, you have to have a lot of sort of muscle memory for a corner like that. You don't really learn it just by sort of the visual references. You learn it just by naturally knowing where the corner is going to go, and maybe just catching out a driver there.
Yeah, it is tricky. As we say, Road America will punish your mistakes if you let it. You have to be 100% focused, 100% concentration for the entirety of the race. Talking of people maintaining that 100% focus, 100% concentration, Kevin Birrell, last laps, quicker than the front lot, even some cases 0.5 of a second quicker than those towards the front. At the moment is quickest in terms of his fastest lap time of the front three. I mean, actually second to Robert Malechka, but very, very close in terms of the lap times. And Birrell, for sure, one to look out for as we continue the narrative of this race. Round number 1 of season 1 of the 2023 iRacing season. Again, this race has already spoken so much in terms of what we've come to expect for these IndyCars. I mean, yes, it's only been one round in, but I'm confident in this community's choice that they've made the right one, Cam.
Yeah, it certainly is, as we're going to get a big change for round 2. Next week, going to the Auto Club Speedway, of course, an oval, 2-mile oval as well. So that's going to be a very quick 100 laps around there. They're going to fly by very fast and pretty much a flat-out track in the oval trim as well. So that's going to be a complete difference for the drivers to work out, which is a great one to see. But for Road America, of course, in the road course variant of the car, you have to drive in a certain way. You've got a couple of different tyre compounds as well. And as it stands, Van der Sant is leading the way, as he has pretty much since the first couple of laps, started on that second place. But Phil Krause has caught up a few tenths, though. So, Zach, I do think he is going to be challenging towards the end, but it's certainly looking very strong for Sant at the moment.
The same point we made about qualifying definitely transfers over to a similar point for the race, with the finest of margins in between these drivers. We saw in qualifying the top 4 separated by around about a tenth or so between them in terms of their fastest lap times. When the gaps between the drivers, when they are at that peak of a level, it's so difficult to make the inroads that you need to. So yeah, it is always going to sort of fluctuate and maybe even be a stalemate throughout the race, and you have to be the one that is just marginally better than those around you to be able to make those gains, because Sant, Krause, Malechka, all of them arguably have the pace to win this race. However, Sant has just, demonstrated himself in such a way that he's been so consistent, so composed, saved the push to passes, and has just driven with such a prowess that the other two haven't quite been able to match so far in this race. But again, all it takes is the most marginal mistakes to bring the difference between the drivers and exaggerate it just a little bit and bring the fight even closer indeed, because right now we have got 8 laps left of this race, still a pit stop in it, and still only 2.5 seconds between our top 3, and also the introduction potentially of Kevin Birrell back into this fight. So definitely still a lot to be to be told for the remainder of this final quarter of the race. But so far, Van der Sant is doing so much. But maybe this is a false security being led into. There's been a number of times where a driver has seemed so comfortable in the race, but once it gets to the end, maybe the pressure can start to pile on.
Yeah, and the fact that Krause has had such a good race, remember, started down in P8 and now is effectively challenging for the lead. He's going to have a lot of confidence in that number 3 machine and is really going to be going for this one. But the times are just so close. They're just trading 10th here, 10th there. So consistent, excuse me, so consistent, and so much speed between them. It's a great battle so far. They do have some lapped traffic coming up their way. I wonder if that could potentially be a way to change the course of this race as well.
Not something we often see in sprint formats is lap traffic, but if it's going to be involved, it can definitely play a big factor. I mean, we often see it at ovals, but not necessarily so much at the road courses. But yeah, these front guys have been so far in front. I mean, they're 8 seconds clear of Adam Crane, and yeah, it just goes to show how much of a breakaway this front fight is. And yeah, you can see there Van der Sande closing on to the back of a bit of lap traffic. This is going to be a bit of a discomfort. This is where Van der Sande's heart starts to race. This is where it's like, please move out of the way, because it doesn't take much for him to lose the small gap already that he's got back to Phil Kraus. Sand's going to try and negotiate this lap traffic as soon as he can, and he's done it at the perfect time. It's all about timing when it comes to lap traffic, and catching them down the pit straight, you couldn't really ask for better. Only losing a couple of attempts, but that is a crucial couple of attempts that Sand can't really afford to lose as Malechka into the pits.
Certainly is for Malechka, going a little bit early. We were mentioning about the tyre drop-off, though. Is that one lap going to be a big difference when we get towards the end? We will certainly find out. Crane as well coming in. He is potentially a dark horse to look out for if any sort of major issues happen to work out for that strategy. But now, where is Birol going to be in comparison to the guys coming out of the pit lane? Certainly one to look out for, but Kraus now half a second back. He's caught 1.5 seconds over the course of the last few laps. That is going to be a big battle towards the end as well.
It is indeed. This is Birol using the push to pass to get past a driver down the pit straight. Adam Crane also into the pit lane. Where is Malechka relative to Birol? You can see leaving the pit lane. So Birol losing a couple of seconds or so. So not making the most really of that undercut. But when they're both on the primary tyres, there is Malechka just in front by about a second or so to Kevin Birol. Now the alternate tyres. This is where Kevin Birol is going to have to make this time up, because we thought the alternates were going to be the quickest stint. They turn out to not quite be the case. Birol has to prove us right with this stint and close that gap to Malechka, and just hope that the drop-off is the same as he experienced to be able to reclose that gap. But Malechka now, he has to make the most of the alternates while they're still fresh, which is, again, drivers just trying to make the most of the tools they've been given.
Yeah, and this goes back to the point I made a few minutes ago, is that you now have to think of your average time from here to the end of the race for Malechka. Does he push now and wear those alternates now, or does he wait and then have fresher alternates in the last couple of laps? So maybe his pace for the next 2 laps isn't quite the peak, but then maybe he keeps the tyres. That is the balance that he's really going to have to look out for. But I'm actually here trying to make a position stick there. Marquez is going to be going side by side down the back straight towards Canada corner, and he puts a car in between himself and Birol, so Birol needs to get past Marquez as well, though I'm sure that won't be too difficult. But Malechka, of course, with the slightly extra grip for the next couple of laps.
Entire top 5 as they stand into the pit lane. Van der Sande, Kraus, Carey, Piazza, Hubler as well. Sandberg is going to make up some places, though still owes us a pit stop. Malechka on the button trying to pull away from Marquez and of course Birol as well, and to make up some time relative to Van der Sande and Kraus as well. He's going to get the jump on all of them, maybe. I think actually he is. Maybe not quite. Sand losing a couple of seconds to him.
Kraus.
Sand with a really quick lap time, but gets past Kraus, and so too does Birol. Kraus is losing a lot of time in that pit lane. What's happened to him?
He has he crashed somewhere coming into the pit lane? I don't know. 35 seconds still there. There's obviously some issues. So Phil Kraus, he was looking to be battling for the lead, is now not even out of the pit lane. So he's going to be going way down, losing so much time and positions, and that is a real big shame for him. Looks like he's just finished the pit lane now, 48 seconds. There must have been some issue there, some damage that we didn't see, because that has really just completely taken him out of contention.
It has indeed. It's completely ruined his run. On the other extreme, though, Van der Sande had a very quick stop, was able to extend the gap to Malechka by around about 2 seconds or so. How has he been able to do that? Has he taken on less fuel? Was he just a little bit quicker going into the pit lane? Or what's happened here? Is it that extra lap that he stayed out relative to Malechka that's been able to him to have this shorter stop? How has Sant made up that much time during what should be the same pit lane sequence?
I would say one, obviously, lap less fuel, which is, a few tenths here and there that you'll go for, and also obviously not having Malechka had to overtake a lap traffic. Of course, it wasn't the not a lap traffic, I should say, it was Marquez, but that obviously just loses a few tenths, and also obviously the colder tyres. So maybe Sant will now lose a couple of tenths on this out lap. We'll have to, on the first lap, we'll have to find out. But they're both on the push to pass as we come up onto the front straight away. Lap 28 8 as it stands of 32, so still 5 laps including this one towards the end of this race, and I'm sure that gap is going to come down. But you're right, Sant just extending the gap ever so slightly and using the strategy to his advantage. But it's really Birrell that we're looking out for, but as it stands, Birrell's still losing time on those primaries.
Information coming in about Phil Kraus sped into the pit lane. That is heart-wrenching for him as to the progress that he was able to make early on in this race and able to carry that through and stay with the front three. Oh, that is so gutting, because it's not the most difficult mistake to make. It's not like it's a difficult one. It's one that every sim driver is going to do at some point. It just so happens that it's happened at a time where he's fighting for the race lead. And at Road America and in these IndyCars as well, when you're at those high stakes, it doesn't take much for you to make that mistake, because it must have only been by a discrepancy of a couple of miles an hour or whatever. But unfortunately for him, it's cost him so much time. That you do have to feel a little bit of empathy for Phil Kraus there in this race.
Yeah, certainly do. But when the stakes are high, you need to do the basics right, and not speeding in the pit lane is certainly one of those. As Santos used push to pass a couple of times, has extended that lead now another second over the course of the last lap. Malechka now about 3 seconds off, so that is really working well for Van der Sant. He's just had so much control of this race, but Sandberg there as well, we do believe, is obviously going to be coming into the pit lane, and exactly on cue goes into said pit lane, and Sant does retake the lead as Malechka of course follows through in second place, Birrell in third, and Crane there behind, and Crane is actually not too far away from Birrell in reality.
Yeah, Crane has done such a good job, and he's not exactly had a quiet race either. He got out of the gates in this race so well. Of course, didn't have the best of qualifying, whatever happened. Whether he made a mistake, was choosing to start a little bit further down. Not really a qualifying driver, which is fair enough. Not many people are. He's done so well in this race to carve his way through and to finish only a couple of seconds off someone contending for the race lead is incredibly impressive. But with Sant's pit lane time and the gaps that he was able to pull on his in-lap and out-lap, of course, was stationary for the same amount of time as Malechka. It was 1 second quicker over the entire pit lane. So obviously got into the pit lane a little bit quicker, got stopped in his marks a little bit better, managed to disengage the pit limit a little bit quicker. He was able to gain that 1 second, but over the course of the in-lap and out-lap, he's done a great job. And it's you have to respect him for it, but it has made this ending of the race a little bit anticlimactic, because it's going to be quite difficult for Malechka and Birrell, even Crane, to close that 11-second gap with such little time left to go.
Yes, certainly spread out more than I thought, to be honest. We're looking at such a four-way battle at the half point of this race, but of course the way that the strategies went, Birrell trying something different, and to be fair, he was in fourth and at the time, and as it stands, he is going to be in third. So some would call that a net win, to be honest, with how it's worked out. But he's further away from the lead than he would want to be. Sant once again on that push to pass, just using up his totals now, as he might as well. No point finishing the race with some left in the bag. Crane there also on the push to pass. But certainly Sant, though, just had so much control of the race, doing the strategy, doing the consistent fast times that we would expect. And even on that last lap, being the only one in the top three to go into the 45, into the 44s as well. The others in the 45. So he's just got everything sorted in this race, and it's really hard to battle against that.
It is. It's not necessarily the other drivers being slow. It's just the fact that Van der Sant has been so on top of his game for this entire race. And he did the right thing. We were talking about earlier on about how he was just doing enough to keep Malechka and Birrell sort of at arm's length. He was able to control the pace in that early stage of the race. Maybe he was just saving himself for this portion of the race where it got to the pit lane sequence and then he was just able to completely unleash. Now with no one around him, he's been able to pull such a big gap that he's just in amongst himself. He's in no man's land, really. He's just out in front doing his own thing, and you can only respect it. I mean, the last time he won the race here on Friday Night Primetime back last season at Talladega, it was three wide for the lead, but separated by about half a tenth or something. But the Van der Sant was able to take the win by, if I do remember correctly, if it wasn't 3 wide, it was definitely side by side on the run to the line. Not quite going to be the same winning margins if he's able to keep it nice and tidy for the next 2.5 laps. But yeah, Van der Sant, you can only speak praises about him because he's been so flawless over the course of this race. And it's not often the case that you can say that about a driver that genuinely, I can't remember a point where he looked at all out of shape.
No, he's just been absolutely perfect, and it's certainly not a driver that I personally would want to come up against, because if you can get someone who can literally just execute the race to perfection, not just from a driving point of view, but from a strategic point of view as well, that is so difficult. And when you got to drive it with that confidence as well, that's certainly one to look out for the future rounds of the season as well, because we've now seen him, of course, do well in an oval format, and then also now here on a road course format as well. That is just starting to tick loads of boxes for Van der Sant, and is doing a very good job indeed. 4.7k I rating, of course, A classes. Pretty much all of the drivers are in this series as well, so working his way up through the I rating, and is beating some higher level drivers as well. He's only number 5, so 4 drivers ahead of him, higher, but him's definitely coming out on top of this one.
Talking of good drives in this race, it would be unfair not to mention the likes of Adam Crane, who's been able to fight his way through the field. Same too with our big gainer, Zachary Hubler, able to gain 15 places over the course of this race. I think it's actually now turned into 16 potentially, but definitely 15, 16 places over the course of this race. Done really well to come from the 20th grid spot up now well inside the top 10, and maybe even trying to endeavour for a couple more. You can see there the positions gained for the drivers. Adam Crane up 5, but Hubler, just such a standout, 15 places. You have to say that is very impressive, considering now the field spread that we've got between the drivers. To gain 15 places despite that, impressive pace, and it's just down to the consistency and hitting your marks in terms of the strategical element, as you say. He's done a very, very respectable job.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Crane doing a good job, and Hubler's only 10 seconds behind Crane, and realistically, over the course of a 32-lap race, that is actually not too far off, to be honest, with how it's worked out. We're seeing almost a 10-second gap, really, for the top 3, so definitely a good one there for Hubler, as you say. So all the push-to-pass is coming in as we're on to the final lap of the race. As I said, you might as well use up your push-to-pass allocation if you've got a few left. Those extra couple of tenths could certainly be very good. And on the last lap, Anders Sandberg there doing a 43.9, and he actually does that for a second lap in a row, a 43.9 again. So such pace. Loads of drivers now in the mid to high 45s. So basically, best part of 2 seconds, 1.5, 2 seconds faster there in that midfield. So maybe not the best result that he would have wanted today, but certainly showing some good pace towards the end here.
Yeah, a couple of mistakes have unfortunately fouled for Sandberg, but it's definitely not too bad at all for the number 9 machine. But yeah, what a race this has. What an opening to this season. And Cam, honestly, I couldn't have really asked for more. Maybe we could have had a bit more of a fight towards the end, but Sam really deserved this race win.
Yeah, he certainly has. The number 5 machine has been doing such a good job all race, and the way that he's just pulled out the extra few seconds in this final stint just, puts the cherry on top of the cake for this race at Road America.
Absolutely. He's only got a couple more corners left to go than has Alexander Van der Sant. He won last season at Talladega on the oval. He comes to Road America to kick off the first race of season 1 of the 2023 iRacing season. He does so in spectacular fashion. The number 9 machine of Van der Sant comes across the line to take the checkered flag here in Road America. 6 seconds clear of Robert Malechka in second place. What a display of performance from this man right here. Started second on the grid. His qualifying pace did not speak anything close to the racecraft and the consistency that he put on show here today. Malechka across the line to come in second place. Then comes Kevin Birrell to round off the podium. Still definitely a decent result for him in that number 2 IndyCar. But yeah, I mean, you definitely would have expected maybe a little bit more from Kevin Birrell, considering the difference in strategy. Unfortunately for him, it didn't quite work. But Sant just sticking to his guns, doing everything he needed to all throughout the race, was able to come out on top. A number of great results for a lot of drivers, and here's Van der Sant celebrating in the only understandable style here to win at Road America.
Yeah, some nice donuts there down at turn 5 for the number 5 car there, enjoying it indeed. But I think with Birrell in the situation that he was in that 4th position coming into the opening round of pit stops. I understand why he wanted to try something different. In the end, he realistically got the same position. Of course, Phil Krauser dropped out, which gave him one of those. But realistically, he finished where he was going to finish anyway had he sat behind them. So I understand why he was trying that. It just didn't really work out for the pole position driver today.
No, not quite. But I mean, starting from pole, you expect to win, and unfortunately for him, that wasn't quite the case. Going the way of Alexander Van der Sande, who takes victory here in Road America, and the fastest lap as well of a 1:43.195. Mightily quick. He'll be joined by Robert Malechka and Kevin Birrell on the podium, with Adam Crane, a respectful race for the Canadian, with Brian Carey rounding off your top 5. Then comes Danilo Piazza, Zachary Hubler up 15 places into 7th. Jacob Oster, Anders Sandberg, and Will Weiser, your top 10. Beyond that, we look to Nico Yava. Philip Kraus, unfortunately, a speeding penalty come the final stop sees him out of contention for the fight for the race lead. Andrew Marquez just in behind him with 13th. Olivia Hayward and Rachuti, your top 15. Chris Wilt, Matt Hulleberg, Seb Alexander, AJ Musselman, and Dale Weiser, your top 20. And only a couple more cars beyond that, those that didn't quite able to make it to the checker flag. Carreño, Sudik, Hardinge, and Olsen, there the rest of the field for the IndyCar Series here at Road America. 32 laps of racing action, Cam, and not one of them were dull.
Yeah, that was a great race, great opening to the season. So good job voting for that to the community. Of course, a very close battle in the voting between this and the IMSA iRacing Series. But I'm definitely glad that the IndyCar Series Open was the one to be chosen, because I think we're going to get a great series of racing. And already next time, we are going to Auto Club for 100 laps of oval flat-out action. It's going to be a great sort of round-up before Christmas here for Friday Night Primetime.
Yeah, I for sure cannot wait. Well, that is going to round off all the action we have here on RaceSpotTV for Friday night primetime. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk you through all the action. Myself, Zach Sweeney, alongside Cameron Roger, with Iku Mary Carla behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, giving you the fantastic production feed and trying to keep up with all the chaos and drama that we had throughout the last 32 laps. You will join us in a week's time, December 23rd at 8 o'clock GMT for round number 2 of this Friday night primetime season. We take to the first oval of the season at Auto Club. Take care. We'll see you soon. And for sure, it's going to be a good one. See you then.